Hey there, Gary Parrish. Welcome back to CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting dodo birds leaky black. The Eye on College Basketball Podcast is presented by Jersey Mike's Sub Above. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do to that like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, please also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. And the place to start, I think, is Charlotte, North Carolina, where the story of championship week is unfolding. Duke star Cooper Flagg, he left Thursday's win over Georgia Tech in the ACC tournament. Got a left ankle sprain. X-rays were negative. That's the good, but a sprained ankle can be rough for a basketball player, so this is not ideal. Norlander, what's the latest on Cooper Flagg's sprained left ankle? And there's no way you expect him to play tonight when the Blue Devils meet North Carolina in the ACC tournament semifinals. Is there?
No shot. And not only do I not expect it, I think it would be completely needless and honestly terrible judgment to do so. Now, we don't, as we pod here Friday morning, good morning, you're in New York City, I'm in New York City. This Friday show every year is always, it's always something, man, because we're about to have an insane slate of games today. There's no point in putting Cooper Flagg on the floor. Shire called it a long shot. What we don't know at this hour is the severity of the injury. Obviously, a high ankle versus low ankle sprain can be a very major difference in discrepancy. High ankle being the one that can keep you out longer overall, but no point here. I think Duke, by nature of beating Georgia Tech, just erased all doubt. It's now it's a 1-seed lock, and many people thought it was probably a 1-seed lock regardless. I think it is now. There's no question. There will be an intriguing wait and see with Duke in terms of how it handles announcing and diagnosing Cooper Flagg and his timeline. It's probably going to be and should be as vague as possible, because I guess theoretically, if you were to say Cooper Flagg has suffered a high ankle sprain and he's expected to be out a number of weeks, and you had a situation where Houston, Michigan State win the conference tournaments, Florida, wins the SEC tournament, Auburn's going to be a 1 seed, and then the committee could say, well, if they don't have a fully healthy Cooper Flagg and we don't know if he's going to be available at all, should we bump him down? I don't think we're getting to that reality. And if I was Duke, I would understandably try and keep that away as far as possible. But yeah, I'll tell you what, the images of Cooper Flagg in the wheelchair early on Thursday, the photos, the videos, all of it, it was certainly surreal. And then Malik Brown got hurt again. Yep. But yeah, kind of a wild start to what was a pretty awesome Thursday overall in college hoops.
I don't believe they'll say much more than they've already said about Cooper Flagg's left ankle sprain. They've already said X-rays are negative. That's good. The next thing you'll hear is he's not playing tonight. And the next thing you'll hear will be he's day-to-day, and we're monitoring it. He's getting treatment every day, and we're monitoring it. And he's treatment every day. And they'll never say he's not playing in the ACC tournament because he can't. They'll say we're just weighing all the pros and cons of everything, and we just think this is the smartest way to do it. For the same reasons the Kansas City Chiefs might sit Patrick Mahomes in the last game of the regular season, not for the same reasons, but you get the point. We're going to set down Cooper Flagg until the NCAA tournament, and they'll keep it there. The interesting thing will be to see how they handle the NCAA tournament. Obviously, if he heals remarkably well and he's 100%, then this is not even a conversation. But on the, let's just say, more realistic chance that he's not 100% by the day Duke opens the 2025 NCAA tournament, I think you can reasonably make an argument there that you just tell the rest of your team, if you guys can't get past the 16 seed without Cooper Flagg, then shame on you. But that's what we're going to try to do. Keep in mind, Duke probably starts in Raleigh. Raleigh is a Friday, Sunday location. That gives them an extra day theoretically. That's a good note. You could have between the day, let's just say if Cooper Flagg doesn't play again until the NCAA tournament, between the day he sprained his ankle and the day he would have to play again, you could have 9 full days. And if you push it to the round of 32, because you trust Con Knippel can get you past the 16 seed,
right?
Then you get 9 full days in between injured ankle and it's time to play. And I don't like I said last night on Inside College Basketball, I work for an NBA franchise. I'm telling you, if that exact same thing happened to Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, John Morant, anybody on the roster last night, the status report today is will be evaluated on a week-to-week basis. I mean, they wouldn't even look at tonight or tomorrow, and it would probably be multiple weeks. They would probably already decide it's multiple weeks. Obviously, Duke's working on a different timetable, but there's a totally reasonable way to have 9 full days in between the moment it happened and the moment you need to play again. And hopefully, just for all of us, for college basketball fans who want to see this go through wherever it goes, I would hate for this to result in one of the all-time what-if stories of college basketball. What if Cooper Flagg never sprains his ankle in Charlotte on a Thursday of championship week? I don't want to have that conversation. So I hope he heals up and is as healthy as can be by the time we start this big bracket.
Nada, just flip on your mic real quick. I do want your input real quick. Nada was in the building. Nada lives in Charlotte. The SEC tournament is in Charlotte, so he was actually there to see all of this. So, Nada, give us a good recap of just where you were and what the scene was like at the what I believe is called the Spectrum Center.
So Spectrum went dead silent. I've never heard it go just immediately silent. That's how big the Flagg injury was, and then on top of that, watching every working media member try to get a Flagg like video of him in the wheelchair was utterly hilarious.
The wheelchair video was Parrish. It was surreal. Like once they started getting the timeline, like it was. I was like, because he's such a dominating, great player, and then he's reduced to sitting in the wheelchair, getting rolled back to the X-ray room, and the X-rays were negative and all that.
It was a weird visual. And I saw some people goofing on it because then he's walking, post game. He's sort of, and like whatever. It's a weird visual, and it'll be a visual you'll see forever. He's like, like when he gets hurt in his 3rd season in the NBA, that's going to pop back up. Okay,
right.
Practically speaking, that is the best way to move him from one place to another in that moment. That's the best way to do it.
Teleport him, you have to, put him in the wheelchair.
Yeah. So it's a weird visual, but like that is the most sensible thing you could do with a 6'9" man who needs to be taken from one place to another and has a bad ankle. Just sit down and we'll roll you. That's the way to do that. And so it created this weird visual, but it's like that's just the way to handle that situation. I didn't chuckle about it as much as everybody else.
Yeah. No, I hear you. As for the schedule, we're going to do Final Four and 1. It's a Friday. We got all that. Carolina plays
Expert picks.
They're coming. Carolina Duke is a 7 Eastern tip in what is an insane after dinner window tonight. We'll get to that in a little bit here, but Duke has the Tar Heels. Tar Heels need to win that game probably to get in, but we can save the quick look ahead stuff for a little bit later. Since we're talking Flagg, the game is tonight at 7 Eastern. That will be the first game, and then Clemson will play Louisville in the second game, and Chucky Hepburn won it late. So some good drama there in Charlotte, the ACC tournament, and I'm glad Nada got to see that up close and in person. But yes, Flagg status, it jumps to essentially the top of the board. How healthy is he? When will he return? And how does this impact the team that has been rated as the best in the sport? It's a hell of a plot twist. Now, hopefully he's okay. Hopefully this is a lower ankle injury and we can get to see him play in the NCAA tournament for his one and only season in college. And we can see Duke out at close to full strength. Wait on the Malik Brown stuff as well. They've kind of taken on some stuff here. They're not the only one. I mean, Kentucky, by the way, Otega Oweh hurt again. Like Kentucky's been a mash unit. It wins insanely dramatically on Thursday night by Otega Oweh beating his former school again. So other schools have dealt with this as well, but not with players on the level of Flagg. The fact that I think he mouthed like, I think he said, I'll be okay. We'll see tomorrow or something like that. There was so much going on. I was at the Garden trying to keep track of all of it, just to put a button on it. This dude should not be allowed to step on a basketball court and compete until the NCAA tournament at minimum. I don't care if he wakes up today and feels like he can bound between buildings. You don't chance that. Wait for the biggest one, the one he's all taken care of.
And John Shire more or less said that yesterday post-game. He was like, I'm going to walk back there in a minute, and it would take everybody in the room convincing me he needs to play for me to decide he's going to play. Like, you're going to have a hard time convincing me he needs to play again in Charlotte, is what John seemed to be implying, which makes the most sense to me. I don't like to say things don't matter, because like anytime you're playing for something, I'd like to think that it matters, right? I watch Canadian and American hockey players play for a trophy they invented a few months ago, and it mattered to them. I like it when things matter. So I don't like it when people say things like the ACC tournament doesn't matter or the SEC tournament doesn't matter. But for what Duke is chasing, it matters significantly less, and it's not worth putting him on the court to even if he could play, which he probably couldn't. Let's just say that. He probably couldn't even play today if he wanted to. This is probably not even a conversation. But even if he wanted to, I just say, calm down, watch your teammates. They're going to try to cut nets without you. Either way, we'll have a 1 next to our name on Sunday, and then let's figure out what to do next. I suspect that's the way it goes. As for North Carolina, for whatever it's worth, Jerry Palm still has them outside of the field. First 4 out. That suggests they need to beat Duke today to get on the right side of the bubble. And I think this is important to point out. I promise I'll try not to point it out every time, but I do think it's just for the record. When we say things like North Carolina must win today, you'll hear people say that on TV today. I might say it on TV today.
You better say it on TV today.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I will make a point to say it during a halftime of a Conference USA game.
Yes.
I'm gonna say North Carolina
crowbar in there.
I'm gonna say North Carolina must win today. And then I'll probably transition to something about the Indiana fan base.
Yes.
I'll transition to something about the Indiana fan base after that. But I'll start on North Carolina must win. It's important to note, we don't really know if North Carolina must win today. It's just according to Jerry Palm. What if the committee's like quietly got them in the field and it's like they're good? You know, we just don't know.
Well, for the sake of the discussion, that is funny. But just for clarity for people that might not be aware, they're not in the field. The committee,
you know what I mean,
moving down the list, and they have not gotten to the point of the cut line, so that's going to continue to happen. But not even the committee knows. Again, I know it's my own personal rule. They have 1 quad 1 win. I don't want to see Carolina. I don't want to see any power conference team, no matter how down or how great your league is. You have 1 quad 1 win from a high major on Selection Sunday. Get out of my tournament.
Yeah, they're 1-11 in quadrant 1. I don't need them in with that resume. The interesting thing will be, let's just say they upset Duke, and then you know what people say. But it was without Cooper Flagg.
That will not matter. That will, and nor, by the way, nor should it. Duke is still a quad 1 opponent without Cooper Flagg on the. Without Cooper Flagg, Duke is arguably still like a top 6-7 team in the country.
I agree with
Doesn't matter. Won't register whatsoever if he's not on the floor. Carolina will have earned it if it can beat Duke on Friday.
I don't want to say doesn't matter, but I agree with you. It will be a quadrant 1 win over a quality basketball team. Auburn was still very good without Janai Broome, and I think Duke could still be very good without Cooper Flagg. Maybe not as good, but good. So we'll see. Massive game in Charlotte. North Carolina and Duke, ACC tournament semifinals. Let's move on. Rodney Terry spent Thursday keeping Texas NCAA tournament hopes alive, not to mention his job. Fun stuff in the SEC tournament. We'll go there next. First, though, let's get a word from our partner.
Dive into the biggest moments from the big dance with NCAA March Madness Bracket Breakdown, Sunday on CBS Sports Network.
All right. For what it's worth, Jerry Palm still has Texas first 4 out. That suggests they need another win at least, but they did get a big one on Thursday, double overtime, 94-89 victory over Texas A&M. That's quadrant 1. This is just sort of an interesting thing that's developing because anytime there's a game involving a bubble team, and the perception of it at least is win it and you keep your hopes alive, lose it and you're dead. That's big time. That's fun. That's high stakes stuff. This has another element to it because, like we've touched on previously, there's a prevailing thought in the industry that the Texas job could be up in the air. And so what we are watching now in real time is a man try to get his team to the NCAA tournament, sure, but maybe try to, just keep his office. Maybe just also try to keep his office. And I'm always fascinated by these types of things because that must be an incredible amount of pressure to be walking around with.
Yeah, 2 angles here. Let's go to the Terry stuff and then quickly look at Texas's prospects here. I would say the prevailing thought is even GP might have been being a little diplomatic there. The prevailing thought is that Texas will open and Rodney Terry would need another huge run in the NCAA tournament in order to reverse that impending decision. And so, yes, for him, I don't want to see Rodney Terry lose his job. Overall, if you look at how much he's won versus some other coaches that have been other high majors over the past 3 years, like he's won at a higher rate, made the tournament last year, but I don't work at Texas. I'm not the athletic director. I'm not the president. I'm not a major influential booster there. These are things happening on the ground in and around Austin. And obviously, people in that program understand what the situation is. And now here we have Texas that has been able to build up a resume that is very debatable now, whether it should get into the tournament. It's won 3 of its past 4, and all 3 wins have come against tournament teams on the road in overtime against Mississippi State about 10 days ago. And then the Vandy win on Wednesday, which was a definitive win. Like that was came out, scouted better, played better, we won. And then the A&M, which is also, you add in the factor that it's double OT, which is just great stuff. I was watching on press row at the Garden, and it was just it was a joy to keep up with that game. And you're doing it against A&M, Texas A&M. You know, the not Oklahoma, not your biggest rival, but that rivalry, no matter what teams are playing in that state, I know that means a lot to a lot of people, and to get in under those circumstances is certainly interesting. I'll take the bubble stuff, and then JP, you can go where you want with it. Texas right now, as we speak this morning, is 19-14. It's got Tennessee later today. If it were to lose to Tennessee, that's a 19-15 team. 15 losses would be the most for any team that is in the bubble discussion. I don't know what the hell you do with Texas. It has right now 7 quad 1 wins. Overall, with a loss, it will be 10-15 in Q1 and Q2, and it will be 12-15 in the top 3 quadrants. It is hard. I don't want to say it's impossible, but if you are under 500 in the top 3 quadrants, that's a tough thing to sell. Its resume metrics average right now is 48.3. To me, just as a general guidepost, it's not a hard and fast rule. You want to be 45th or better in your KPIs, wins above bubble, strength of record. Doesn't mean you can't get it if you're outside of it, but man, you'd feel more comfortable if you're 45. Certainly if you're 40 or better, Texas isn't going to get there. If it beats Tennessee, I don't think there's any argument to keep them out personally, but I think it needs to win. When it comes to specifically what wins does it have in the non-conference, it's aching. That is what is holding Texas back. The best win in non-con play is against St. Joe's, and the next one is at NC State. Not good stuff. It's done all of its damage in league play, and it has wins over tournament teams because, look at the whole league practically is in the tournament. So you've got Mizzou, you've got at Oklahoma, you've got Kentucky at home, you've got Mississippi State, Vandy, and Texas A&M. So they've done a lot. If you really start to burrow in and dig in on other teams that are on the cut line, it gets really compelling because there's a lot of teams with a lot of different looking resumes, and it's going to be really intriguing. My one thing to keep in mind for our viewers and listeners here, just remember this: when the teams that get into the field get in, it is 12 members that are voting. They all individually vote privately. No one else can see what they vote except the chair, Bubba Cunningham, at the end gets to see Dan Gavitt, who oversees this whole damn thing, but doesn't vote and doesn't tell the people what they should vote. He runs the tournament, so he gets to see it as well. They will all submit everything, and it becomes a voting and, almost like a ranked choice voting kind of deal here. So you very well could have a situation, win or lose for Texas on Friday, where 3, 4, 5 people on the committee might have Texas in the field with 3 or 4 spots to spare. And you could have 5, 6, 7 people on the committee that have Texas 2, 3, 4 spots outside the field, and that could outweigh it. Just keep that in mind when we get to the bracket. There's not universal agreement on this. It is a voting process, and Texas's case is going to be as intriguing as anyone. If it does not beat Tennessee, I could buy putting them in. I could buy not putting them in. My last thing, Parrish, I know I'm going a little long here, but I have to bring this up. The committee does not take into account what league you're in when it does this, and I know some people might roll their eyes at it. Having gone through the mock exercise, I'm almost positive Parrish did this all these years ago as well. It is very easy to not let league affiliation play a role because of what you're looking at, the amount of different teams you're looking at, home record. Now you're looking at wins above bubble. You're looking at predictive metrics. You're looking at the teams that they have beaten and all that stuff. It's really not that hard if you actually go through it to do that. However, that being said, I think on some sort of level, maybe subconsciously, maybe consciously, and it won't even be spoken in the room, I do wonder when we're getting to the final 2-3 teams that are in the field and the final 2-3 teams that are not in the field. I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying it's going to win the day. Will some committee members on some level be like, am I going to put the 14th team in the SEC out of this other team here? Are we going to do a 14th team? I think that is going to at least, how can it not stir in the brain, GP? I don't know if it'll have any impact whatsoever on Texas getting in or not, but the unprecedented nature of the SEC this year leads me to believe that is an unavoidable thing in terms of the deliberation process internally for every committee member. I would have Texas out of the field right now. If it beats Tennessee, I would have them in.
As somebody who used to put together a bracket, I mean, computer screen out, the whole deal. What you learn pretty quickly is the biggest misconception fans have about assembling a bracket is that you see or even think about number of teams from conferences. I would literally get through every time and I'd go, all right, I'll add it up. Yeah. That's the way it should be. That's the way I think it will be. And I would be disappointed if it's not. At the end of it, if you've got 3 teams you're looking at, Texas plus 2 more. Just evaluate the resumes, compare, contrast, do it however you do it, but don't get caught up in any conversation about this is the 14th team from the SEC, this is the 4th team from the ACC, this is the whatever team from the Big East. We're not thinking in those terms. You shouldn't be. I agree with you.
But do you agree that it almost feels like it's impossible for it not to be part of the thought process because it's so many teams and the SEC has been so good and it's been such a dominant league this season, Parrish? I just don't see how it doesn't enter in, willingly or not, into the thought process for maybe a few of the voters on the committee.
Humans are humans.
Yeah.
You got 12 of them making decisions. I would assume that 12 of them, that some of them might have that seep into their head. I just hope that they would stop themselves. How about this? It would pop into your head perhaps, and then you should stop yourself and say, that's not what I'm here to do. All right. I'm here to evaluate this. At this point in the process, I'm evaluating this team against this team, and I don't care where they're from, nor should I. That's what I hope happens.
Yep.
Beyond that, looks like today we get to see how big of a heart Rick Barnes has.
Oh, gosh. Collusion?
Let's see how big of a heart Rick Barnes really has.
That's what, Parrish, there's so much going on that I hadn't even thought about that.
Everybody loves to tell you how great of a man Rick Barnes is, and from my personal experience, I co-sign it. I love Rick Barnes. Let's see how big his heart is. Hey, Rick. I sounded like Cedric. Hey, Rick. Your former assistant and very close friend might need a win today to keep his job. How big's your heart? How big's your heart?
I think you might want that 1 seed more. So
we're about to see how big somebody's heart is. Texas, Tennessee is one of the SEC tournament quarterfinals. We're also going to get Auburn, Ole Miss today, Florida, Missouri today, Alabama, Kentucky today, and we will get Alabama, Kentucky because you touched on it. I just wanted to one more time. Otega Oweh just killing his former school.
No.
27 more last night. He got 28 on him the first time, 2 wins. So that's wild. And now if it plays to seed today, and who knows if it will, but if it plays to seed today, Saturday's SEC tournament semifinals could be number 1 Auburn versus number 8 Tennessee and number 4 Florida versus number 5 Alabama relative to the AP poll. We might not have a Final Four with 4 teams that good.
I know. It's really true.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. By the way, the SEC, and I am sure if folks didn't catch on to this, 4 games on Wednesday, 4 games on Thursday, 4 games on Friday. Like, for the media folks that are actually there and doing God bless you. That is, my buddy Stephen Hartzell's down there. He's doing that. That is just insane. The SEC, and in general, again, I'm today, Parrish. Today could be the best day we have in the entire year. It's loaded. The SEC has incredible potential. So does the Big Ten. We'll get to that in a few. But the SEC, yes, the semifinals of the SEC. And I would take the bet, and I know you agree with me, what's going to be, how about this? When you add up the Ken Pom rankings of the 4 teams in the SEC semis, will that number be lower than the Ken Pom rankings at the time when we get to the Final Four? I will say the SEC wins that.
I would say yes.
Yes.
Relative to computers, the SEC tournament semifinals, I think, are more likely to have 4 better teams collectively than the 4 teams that end up in San Antonio, which would just be another perfect little bullet point to have when we are looking back on the 2024-25 SEC season and you're trying to think of all these ways to frame its dominance. That would be another little bullet point that would look neat on the page. Let's turn to the Big 12 tournament. Semifinals are tonight. Houston, BYU, Texas Tech, Arizona. Cooper Flagg's ankle injury got all the attention. Houston's Juwan Roberts also left Thursday's game with a sprained ankle just 18 minutes in. It's a right ankle sprain. He's Houston's 3rd leading scorer, leading rebounder, 11.1 points, 6.4 boards. He's not Cooper Flagg, but he matters to them. Last season, Houston loses Jamal Shead in the NCAA tournament. We'll see what happens with Roberts, but it just sort of, I realized yesterday, I have, because I got a million TVs on, and you can't look at a screen without seeing Cooper Flagg in a wheelchair. And I'm like, they're barely showing us Juwan Roberts, but that's a projected 1 seed that might have just lost a player too.
Well, to that point, Parrish, and some of this is I'm at the Garden for 4 games, and there's a lot going on, and I got the iPad out. I'm trying to go quad box on YouTube, and it was actually pretty good, but there were some situations where there was a game that I wanted to watch, and you couldn't quad box it, and then you got to decide to punt on all that stuff. I knew that Roberts got hurt. I didn't see it happen in real time. I didn't know what was going on there. So to your point, like it actually does matter for him specifically. Houston, Colorado is just not a game that's going to hit the radar overall. And yeah, we wait and see. He's a very, very good player, and that he means a ton to Houston. So that's a good point by you that you bring up there. Houston, I feel like is locked. I want to say it's locked into the one. I don't see how that's going to not be the case. The BYU game is fascinating. We can wait on this because GP I don't think he realizes this because I updated the doc since we started the show. But Houston BYU will be the and one of the Final Four and one, so we'll save that once we get there. Other Big 12 semi going down is Arizona versus Texas Tech. Arizona boots Kansas out of the field for the Big 12 tournament. Excuse me, on Thursday, and that's a quality game. These teams have met previously, with Arizona beating Texas Tech back on February 8th. That was a pretty definitive win. Prior to that, Texas Tech won definitively as well when it was on when was it flip? No, I guess both teams won at home. Arizona won at home in Tucson, Texas Tech won at home in Lubbock, and now we get the rubber match here. That's a quality pair of semifinals on a Friday night in the Big 12 there, and can make a case really. I mean, Parrish, I honestly believe this. Like, you can make a case for any four of these teams that can wind up being the Big 12 tournament champion with what they have and how they've been playing. Arizona has not been consistent, obviously. I actually thought beating Kansas after, it played Kansas back-to-back. It lost at Fog Allen, then it gets the Jayhawks and was able to run away with them. But it's Tommy Lloyd. They got a good squad, and that's a quality pair of semifinal games there out in KC.
I got some more BYU stuff. I'll just save it for the top 25 and one. Let's keep it moving. Let's go to the Big Ten. Quarterfinals are today. Oregon, Michigan State, Wisconsin, UCLA, Illinois, Maryland, Michigan, Purdue. You didn't hear me say Indiana in the quarterfinals, and that's because the Hoosiers were eliminated by Oregon on Thursday. You might remember a few weeks back, Purdue coach Matt Painter had some strong opinions about the, let's just say, toxic nature of a certain portion of the Indiana fan base. Last night, Omar Ballo, the transfer from Arizona, who has enrolled at Indiana, had some similar comments about a certain segment of the Indiana fan base. Not all of it, just a part of it that has Twitter accounts and, just a part of it. And Nada, I think you've got it. Let's listen to what Ballo had to say last night.
Our fans' impact let us down as a whole unit, because we come here every single day. All we're trying to do is win for these people. But we lose one game, 2 games, the next thing you know, your DM is crazy. You don't like death wishes, like death threats and stuff like that. Like, nobody want to live like that, And I hope people they change stuff like that, because this is not helping anybody.
How surprised were you that was kind of some of the vibe that you got this year? Did that
A lot.
take you off?
No, at the end of the day, we're human beings. We have feelings, Just like you wake up, go to work, and someone is wishing nothing but the worst to you and your work. It's mental draining, and nobody want to deal with that for a whole 5-month season. It's too much to take in for players and for coaches. And I hope, man, they change, man, because it's time. Like, they're not helping us. They're not helping anybody.
Are you talking about IU fans, IU Nation?
I'm not talking about the true fans, because I know they had our back. But the people who pretend to be fans and want nothing but the worst for the team, I'm talking about those people. If you're not cheering for us, just leave us alone, because at some point you have life. Go take care of that and let us handle our worst.
Norlander, just what do you make of what Omar Ballo said last night?
It was humanizing, and there was also Coleman Hawkins was even more. This was a couple of days ago when Kansas State lost in the Big 12. Coleman Hawkins was inconsolable as he talked through the media. I actually really respect Coleman for being that emotional. Coleman Hawkins was more like, I let the team down and I wanted to be better, but he did have allusions to what he actually mentioned earlier this year, where he had been on the wrong end of a lot of really just abhorrent behavior online. And you see it here from Umar Ballo, which, that might be the first real quote clip from Ballo in his long college career that really got serious traction, and rightfully so. Kind of 2 things happening at once here. Indiana's tournament resume, you really dive into it, and Hoosiers, there's just a few teams that I don't feel particularly confident on either side of this debate, and I actually think Indiana's in that group right now. And then that's tied to the fact that it was a disappointing season this season, and the fans are going to be the fans, at least, the ones that like to claim they're fans, but they're, way over the top and completely out of bounds in the things that they're saying. And, I get it. You want fans to be passionate, to be invested. But there's always going to be a fringe group. There just always is. And it sucked to hear Ballo kind of lay out the realities of what he and his teammates, went through for the majority of the season.
This can happen anywhere. I think it does happen lots of places. I believe NIL plays a major role in it.
It's only worsening it.
Yes.
Entirely. Yes.
I promise.
By the way, which we said on this show and was completely predictable.
Oh, yeah. I live in a city where Chandler Parsons got a $90 million contract and was hurt the whole time. And every time you heard a fan complain about Chandler Parsons, the $90 million figure was always a part of it. Always. And Coleman Hawkins had to deal with that all season. 2 years ago, if Coleman Hawkins sucked, you know what people said about him? He sucks. You know what they said about him this year? Every day, he sucks, and he's making $2 million. He's the most overpaid player in college basketball. You don't deserve anything. You should pay us. You should pay us. Like, we said in studio on CBS Sports Network, and people would make jokes about it. And I would laugh. I don't want to act like I'm above it, If things are funny, I'll laugh at them. But that's hard to deal with, man. And you saw it a couple nights ago. That young man, it came over him. And just if you're one of those people who are out there sending those tweets like that, just think about that's what you're doing to those people. That's how you're making them feel. You comfortable with that? As for the Indiana thing, the same way some Indiana fans scream Matt Painter doesn't know what he's talking about, we'll now just scream Ballo doesn't know what he's talking about, because nobody ever knows what they're talking about except them, right? And as I've acknowledged, this can happen anywhere, this type of stuff, and I think it does happen lots of places. But if you can tell me the other place in the entire country where in recent weeks the most accomplished college coach in your state was asked just sort of open-ended, what do you make of all this? And the main thing he said was, your fans have to chill. Your fans are too much. This is your rival's coach. Even he feels sorry for your coaches. All right. Most rivals hate the other coach. They hate their rival, the guy who coaches that. Here's the Purdue coach saying, man, I feel bad for the Indiana coaches. Where else is that happening? And then weeks later, a player says the exact same thing. Like, do you realize you could ask former Indiana coaches, the current Indiana coach, media members, opposing coaches, rival coaches, current Indiana players, and they all have the same opinion about a certain segment and very loud portion of the Indiana fan base. So you can keep yelling that everybody who says you're crazy is actually the people who are crazy. Or you could maybe realize that everybody but you has a similar opinion about you. Up to you. It's always up to you. You can do whatever you want. But go look at the Indiana basketball Wikipedia page and pick the accomplishments and tell me if you think it's going okay. If you like what you're getting, keep doing what you're doing. But before you keep doing what you're doing, you better be sure you like what you're getting. And I can't imagine they like where this program has been for longer than it should have been.
Well said, GP. I know we got to keep it moving here, but real quick on Indiana. We mentioned it in the preseason. The non-conference was an issue, and now it's rearing its head. Indiana doesn't have a notable win outside of Big Ten play, period. And so all of its damage that was done was in the league. And if you're looking at the best wins right now, at Michigan State, good. Home against Purdue, good. Then you're looking at what? At Ohio State, not going to be in the tournament. At Penn State, nowhere near the tournament. The resume metrics this morning with Indiana, bringing it up here right now, 54 in the net, average at 43 in resume metrics. So it's 35 at KPI, 48 in strength of record, 46 in wins above bubble. It's 8-13 overall in Q1. And it's 5 games sub 500 in Q1, Q2. It is a major sweat between now and 6 o'clock on Sunday for the Indiana Hoosiers. I'm not going to predict if they're in or out. In fact, I need to I need to wait and see what we get here with the likes of Boise State on Friday. Colorado State, which I think needs to win the Mountain West, but could be a bid thief situation in that kind of spot there. Just got to wait and see. One more win would have done it, but yeah, you're sitting there waiting and sweating, no doubt about it. You're out. Oregon is in. Oregon, Michigan State is a game to know. In fact, let's just. I know you were setting the table, GP, but I'll just run with it here because we do not have a Big Ten turn. Oh, we have Maryland, Illinois, Final Four and 1. So that's going to be in the Final Four and 1. But the bracket in the Big Ten is chalk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seeds all move along to the Friday quarterfinals. You got green on green getting going first at noon here shortly after we're done wrapping up the show with Sparty and Oregon. Purdue and Michigan will be the late game that'll bookend it, and then UCLA and Wisconsin get going approximately around 2:30 Eastern. For the Big Ten, that's Illinois or Oregon doesn't whatever either way. Indiana's got the bigger fan base in that region overall, but you get your top 8 seeds, and that's a really fun thing. By the way, on Oregon, if you had not been keeping track, this team has not lost in more than a month. It's now riding what I think is an 8-game winning streak heading into its game against Michigan State.
Indiana is last 4 in right now, according to Jerry Palm. And if you go look at his latest bracket, it would have them matched up against the team you just mentioned, Boise State. According to Jerry Palm's latest bracket, first 4 in Dayton, Indiana against Boise State, which will be an amazing opportunity for Boise State. Imagine being 0-10 all-time in the NCAA tournament, but then being able to get your first NCAA tournament victory against a blue blood program like Indiana. Wouldn't that be something?
We'll see. But yes, that is – Boise State has more appearances. What is the note? They don't have a win. They've done something. Maybe they're in a multi-bid league and they have more appearances without a win than anyone. But, yeah, they got to get off the schneid.
Got to get them one.
But you got to win. You got to win a game. You got to win. You have to win this game here. Yeah. Got to win the game.
All right. You ready to get to the Final Four and 1?
Real quick, actually, before we do that, just Big Ten, we don't have to go crazy on carousel stuff. I do think before we preview, I am anticipating movement here today. I keep an eye on Iowa. I'd keep an eye on Villanova. Minnesota fired Ben Johnson, so that job is already open there. NC State continues to look at its situation. NC State's athletic director flew to Houston to meet with Will Wade on Thursday to be determined at this hour if he's like in the out and out front runner, if he's just, one of 2 or 3 serious candidates that they're looking at. So as always, every single year we get to Thursday, Friday of conference tournament week, I'm most excited, invested, and care about the games on the court. But the carousel stuff is GP's done plenty, obviously before as well. He knows all too well that we've got a lot going on there. Yep. But now we are anticipating we should have some openings happen here today. And with that, it just creates a news cycle kind of over here on the side. And I'm actually kind of surprised as we do this. We're approaching 10:30 a.m. and either on my phone or in my timeline, I don't think we have an update just yet. But I think UCF has a real chance of opening as well. Maybe 1 or 2 of these coaches can stave it off and get another year. But there is an expectation we are going to have multiple power conference jobs open today. And that could obviously continue into the weekend.
In the Big Ten, Minnesota has opened. Just to connect a bunch of schools we've been talking about in recent minutes, Colorado State coach Nico Medved is from Minneapolis.
Yep.
So
I don't know if he'll get the job. I think he is probably considered the most likely. But just keep an eye. Ben McCollum, who is, we talked about on the show. We did a stay or hit. I think he's most likely. But if Iowa opens, I think Iowa's going to try hard with him. Darren DeVries, who's from Iowa, keep an eye on that. Maybe Minnesota tries to get Ben McCollum, whose team isn't playing right now because Drake's already in the tournament. Just one to keep an eye on, and we'll see the situation there. I actually think maybe Indiana's flirted with DeVries a little bit more than people might realize as well. But he's also had a good job with a really good fan base. And West Virginia, by the way, West Virginia is another team. West Virginia and Baylor, I think they're in. But you start looking at that line and you look at the resume, there's a lot to pick from here and there. Anyway, that's a whole different thing from the carousel. But and just one last happened in semi-surprising fashion, but nonetheless, it is open. And I would think Nico Medved is the most likely candidate. But even saying that, Parrish, I'm saying he's 45% and the rest of the field is 55%. It's by no means do I think that's a foregone conclusion.
You never know how these things will go. There have been hires I questioned that have turned out great, hires I thought would be great that turned out not so great. But He's the type of hire, from my perspective, you just go ahead and go A+ and move on. Like that makes perfect sense to me. One last thing, and then I promise we'll move on. And because I had somebody ask me this last night after the Ballo clip went viral, and I mentioned the Matt Painter thing, and somebody asked on X, like, can this impact a coaching search? Oh, yes, and it does. And I only bring this up because you mentioned Ben McCollum. Ben McCollum might be somebody who is literally picking between Indiana and Iowa. The same way Dusty May got to pick. Mm-hmm. Ben might get to pick. I don't know, but we'll see. He might get to pick. And on a very surface level, you just pick Indiana every time, right? That's the bigger job. It's Indiana. What are we talking about? But there is a certain type of person who would say, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want my kids to have to deal with that. I don't want my wife to have to deal with that. That's a real thing that these people do consider. And it doesn't mean it will prevent Indiana from hiring exactly who Indiana wants, whatever. But it is something people talk about. If you don't think what Matt Painter said about being the coach at Indiana and what Ballo said about what it's like being a player at Indiana, if you don't think that is heard by Indiana candidates and considered to some degree, you're out of your mind. It is something they talk about.
Oh yeah. No, again, it's not going to prevent anyone, but this is 100%. I mean, in years past, literally this thing has come up when I've talked and checked in on coaches that are, what do you think about this job? And what do you think about, the situation there with either fan support or potential fan toxicity with multiple spots? This 100%, it's, it might be, 8% of the equation, just this much of what they're doing, but it 100% is a thing. Not with every guy, but with plenty of them. Keep an eye on all of that and see what emerges. I guess I'll also add this. Villanova lost to UConn in the Big East, and I think a little bit to more of that when we get to the Final Four and 1. But Nova lost. I happened to be talking with Hurley afterwards, so I actually had to leave Neptune's press conference. My understanding was he was asked about his job, but he more or less said, and if it wasn't in the presser, I think one of the beat writers got him one-on-one leaving. And I'm going off our buddy Jeff Borzello, who told me after the fact. He might have said, can't really talk about that. Like, we just lost the game. Non-answer, essentially. But my understanding is that that search has not begun, but it is expected to initiate. Yeah,
that's got to be over. I mean, I don't say.
I know.
Yeah, I don't say.
For formal purposes, I think it initiates over the weekend, and it is a matter of when they want to put out this release.
That's right. I mean, I like Kyle. I was hoping this would go well. Honestly, hoping it would just go well because I bet this hurts Jay, right, on some level.
I haven't talked to Jay about it. Knowing Jay, knowing Jay.
Yeah.
I have to imagine he is seriously busted up because he wanted Kyle Neptune to be the coach of Villanova for 20 years. And that's just not what's going to be the case. And that is not an easy thing by any means. Yeah.
No, like what you're hoping is you are Gene Cady and he is Matt Painter,
Yes. Right.
And or you get the point. And it just hasn't worked. And that is the most obvious place where you don't have to be angry about it. You don't have to yell and scream. You just say, hey man, this has not worked and we've got to do something different. And that's what's gonna happen there. You ready to provide some expert picks?
Let's do it. I don't even want to talk about what happened last weekend. I don't know the records. I don't need to know the records. Let's pick some games. Friday's going to be phenomenal. Let's go.
First, let's get a word from our partners.
Partners, let's go. No.
Who's in? Who's out? Let the madness begin. The NCAA Men's Basketball Championship Selection Show on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
And now it's time for the Final Four and 1 presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. I won't tell you the records, but we had the same record last week.
Okay.
You and I
need to know. I don't even want to know. It could be 4-0, 4-1, 5-0, 2-3.
None of those. It wasn't any of those.
Okay.
It wasn't any of those. The record wasn't any of those. But we did have the same records, which means I remain, I believe, 4 games behind you. Game 1, Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. It's number 3 Auburn versus Ole Miss inside Dolly Parton Arena. You can watch it on ESPN. Auburn minus 11.5. Bruce Pearl's Tigers, of course, on a 2-game losing streak. Do they have to win today to secure the number 1 overall seed?
This isn't a complaint. This is just an accounting matter. I think this is now the 4th straight show we've
11th straight show. It's the 11th straight show I've asked you. Does Auburn need to win?
I mean, I think they probably have it regardless. if you're wondering if these teams, what happened previously when these teams met, I think they played twice. Auburn won both of them, and won both of them. One of them, remember one of them was the mutilation. It was like a 30-point win.
Yeah.
You said 11.5.
11.5.
I'm gonna be consistent. Probably be consistently wrong. I'm going back to my old ways. Lord, forgive me, for I'm about to go back to the old me. The Bugs Bunny, the meme, and by that I mean I'm riding with Auburn. I think they are going to really show up and show out and be awesome here over the next 3 days. I think they have one. I think they get 2 comfortable double-digit wins and one fight. I don't think the fight happens here against Ole Miss. I like Auburn to win, Auburn to cover.
Fight could happen on the flight home from the SEC tournament between teammates.
That'd be a hell of a way to come full circle before the NCAA tournament. Maybe just for all time's sake, really. If they lose to the Rebels, they're like, we gotta get that spirit back. Can someone hit someone, please? Although it's Nashville, that's a flight. They definitely flew. That's too far to drive, no doubt. Yeah.
You sound like a man who doesn't respect Sean Padula.
Dude, big time shot. Kind of lost in the shuffle of a very awesome Thursday. Padula, who does not shy from the moment, he is that guy. That was some good stuff.
Made the shot. Ole Miss into the. I'm from the SIP. All right, I'm operating at a 4-game deficit, and I'm from the SIP. So you know what I have to do. I've got to take the Rebels plus 11.5. Okay. Game 2, Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. St. John's versus Marquette inside Rick Pitino Arena in Midtown Manhattan. You can watch it on Fox. St. John's minus 4.5.
Big East was a lot of fun on Thursday. I'll pick the game, but let me at least invoke this. DePaul got Creighton to double OT. Also blew like a 14-point or 17-point lead, whatever it was. Biggest lead of the season. DePaul has never made the Friday semifinals. Parrish, when you're sitting in studio and I was, 20 blocks south of you or whatever, were we thinking the same thing? DePaul's actually going to do this? I really thought that it was like the lead's big enough. They're going to get this done. I thought they were going to be in the semis on Friday. Did you think that too?
Well, of course. Like when one basketball team's up 17 on the other one, I assume that all right, we'll get this done unless the other one's got Steph Curry or something like that. So yeah, I thought DePaul was doing it, and we were going to get to have fun with that. And
yeah,
now look.
Well, you know what though, I did get some good chat with Holtman after, and big jump for DePaul. We'll move on to the teams that matter, but just people aren't aware they were 309 at KenPom last year. As we speak here this morning, let me bring up the exact. DePaul is ranked. DePaul at KenPom is 117. So that's 190 jump year over year. So some good gains there for Holtman. Good job in year one, and see if they can. If the goal isn't to be a 14 and 19 team, the goal is to get above 500 and get to the tournament and all that kind of stuff. But that was Creighton DePaul was not an appealing matchup whatsoever, and it wound up being the most exciting and fun of the 4 games that I experienced there. St. John's Butler was nothing. Xavier Marquette. Xavier lost. Talked to Sean Miller after. And let me just shoehorn a couple things in here because we're not going to talk again until after the bracket comes out. Xavier has 2 quad 1 wins. It refreshed overnight. I don't know if you saw that, Parrish. So it's not like it's now different from Carolina in that regard. And keep in mind, and I do wonder if this will play a factor or not, they did not have Fremantle in a 2-point loss to Marquette and in like a 4 or 5-point loss against UConn that was in overtime. They didn't have them in those games. And I don't know if it will be a deciding factor, but Xavier's yet another. You look at the resume. There's no bad losses. There are 1 or 2 games under 500 in Q1, Q2. There's a lot going on there. They blew the lead. Unfortunately, this has been a thing all season long because I'm talking with Sean about it, where they just, in part because of point guard play and some other stuff, they just have not been able to sustain big leads, and it really folded on them. Conwell had 38 and almost carried this team to a win, but credit to Marquette and Shaka Smart. Cam Jones is awesome. There's a whole list of reasons why that was a lot of fun. 4-5 game. Marquette moves along here. I don't know if Xavier will be in or not. It will not surprise me if they're in the field, but that's yet another team. Seems hard to read overall. So you had that. UConn won. We'll have UConn play against Creighton Friday night in the second game. Looking forward to that a ton. And then to this pick here, and then it's all you to comment GP. 4.5. I will go with the Johnnies. The fan base in this building is going to be like, they were just okay yesterday because it was Butler. Boy, oh boy. Friday night, doubleheader, Garden. Getting goosebumps right now. This is going to be awesome. Marquette can win the game. No doubt on that. But I will take St. John's to continue its strut here throughout the league. And you say 4.5. That literally GP, if it was 5.5, I'd probably take Marquette. But what the hell? I'll be wrong again. Give me the Johnnies to win and cover.
We just did this. We did this last Saturday.
Well, I'll tell you real quick. Shaka mentioned that. It was kind of a cool moment. Oh, and I forgot to mention something else too. Side note, I did an HQ hit in the Marquette locker room because they had left and it was the changeover. It was the second game. So there was no one coming in. There was no one soon to get there. And so there's a security guard. I was like, hey, listen, I've done some hits for TV before in here. Can I dip in? And he said, yeah, that's fine. I was like, just don't let anyone come in. I'll be out in like 9 minutes. You were on the desk in New York, so you didn't see it. Dude, I'm doing this Marquette hit talking about Xavier on the bubble. And a janitor comes in the door is right behind me. The janitor comes in. Parrish, I'm talking to you like this. He's right here. There's a garbage can right next to me. Like, I'm talking like this, I'm going all the way in on Xavier's resume, and this dude could not give less of a damn.
No, they don't care. They don't even know.
The garbage right next to me. And I side-eyed him. I'm not kidding when I tell you I was a half second away of just like really rolling with it and being like, hey, buddy, Musketeers, what do you got on Xavier? Like, I really almost went there. I got really close. He's got the garbage can on wheels, rolling it behind me. And Chris Hassel was hosting the segment. It was incredible. It made for a funny moment, and it didn't train wreck the segment. But I asked the security guard outside the door. I was like, "We're good, right? Like, just don't let anyone come in." And lo and behold, like 8 minutes later, this guy comes just strolling. It was incredible. So I
was hoping you were going to say it was Dwayne Wade.
That would have been even better if it was Dwayne Wade. I had another thought that I've completely sidetracked on. Oh, Cam Jones in the post game. You talked about the St. John's rematch. Shaka Smart referenced it and called it. That was their senior night. But you know what? We can make this senior month. But as Shaka's talking, Jones is to his right, and just like the memory of like the St. John's ending in the game, he's there and he goes, "Damn!" He's just sitting there, just like screams it to himself, like, "I can't believe we lost that game." Like, it was like half serious, half joking. Love Cam Jones, man. Like, an awesome player. They will be ready for this game. Has awesome potential. I'm already half regretting picking the Johnnies, but I'll stick with the -4.5. Go ahead.
Cam Jones is my little homie from Memphis. What do you want me to do?
He's awesome.
Before that story, I was just going to ride with Rick Pitino because that seems like I've been doing that for a little while. All right? But then you tell me a story about my little homie from Memphis. What am I supposed to do? Yeah. Marquette +4.5. Oh, with St. John's, by the way,
yep.
4-4 in quadrant one right now. We had Dan Gavitt on Inside College Basketball last night, and I asked him specifically about St. John's because I do think this is interesting. 4-4 in quadrant one, that's not going to measure up to any of the other elite schools. It's just not. Like Auburn, Houston, Duke, you can't touch it with that.
Yeah.
And they can't get there. They can add some good stuff, but they're never going to be able to get there from
two more.
But the thing we reference more often than anything else is quadrant one, and their quadrant one is never going to be as good as the other great teams. But they only have 4 losses by a total of 7 points. They're the outright Big East champs. They could be Big East tournament champs. They've got an all-time great coach, the Big East Player of the Year. Like, what do you do with that? Because it is more believable to me that this is one of the 4 best teams in the country than it is that this is a team that should be a 3 seed on Selection Sunday.
I'll rant about it Sunday if St. John's wins the Big East tournament and isn't on the 2 line. I will rant. And there will be no justification for keeping off the 2 line. Because again, how many games you win should matter, and how few losses you have should that should win out. I want to have faith in the committee, even with some really good teams on that 2 line. And if Texas Tech is better than people realize, one from a resume perspective, I don't care if St. John's double sweeps the Big East, and even if it's only a 4-bid Big East in that situation, Xavier doesn't get in. I don't want to hear it. Should be on the 2 line in that situation with again 4 losses, 7 points. Now you lose to Marquette. Conversation's over. I get it, but they haven't lost to Marquette yet, so let's see what happens.
Right. Yeah. Like at some point, if they win the Big East tournament, you don't at least get them up to a 2. At some point, you're just penalizing them because Seton Hall had no NIL. and other things like that had nothing to do with St. John's or Rick Pitino. I would think that would feel wrong to me. We'll see where it goes. Tonight, Marquette plus 4.5. For no other reason than Norlander told me a neat story about Cam Jones. Game 3, Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, Maryland against Illinois inside Caitlin Clark Fieldhouse. You can watch it on the Big Ten Network. Maryland minus 1.5. The Terps are 7-1 in their past 8.
Yeah, that's just it. I thought you had another thought there.
No, I'm looking at the clock. We got to get going, baby.
Okay, sorry. Illinois looked good. Grabbed 5. I think Maryland can actually win this conference tournament here. Yeah, we do need to get going. Illinois. What was Illinois yesterday? From they win 106-94. They beat Iowa. I'm just checking the 3-point shooting here because I know they were spicy yet again. They go 12 of 26 from 46%. Man, tough game. This is one of the games where both teams are easily in the field. Like, does the loser get affected one bit by the seed line? I actually don't think whatsoever. What the hell? I'll take Maryland.
I'm also a Terrapin. Maryland minus 1.5. Game 4, Friday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Boise State against New Mexico inside the Greg Maddox Center. You can watch it on CBS Sports Network. New Mexico minus 1.5. Boise State, safe, or you better win one more. Or you ain't
I don't think they have a chance if they lose. They have a quad 4 and a quad 3 loss. They have a win and a loss in all 4 quadrants. Resume metrics average outside the top 50. I think it is mandatory that Boise State wins this game. New Mexico is safe. We'll see if Richard Pitino wants to invoke himself in some league bid collusion here. Quality game, CBS Sports Network. I will have this on the iPad 100%. As I'm there at the Big East tournament. New Mexico's been really, really good. That line is tight. I will take Donovan Dent has another awesome. I'll take Lobos to win. I know you and your Boise State Broncos shorts, you want the other outcome there to maximize on Mountain West, but I will go Richard Pitino.
You mentioned Donovan Dent, Mountain West Conference Player of the Year. Awesome story. Goes to New Mexico. I said this the other night on Inside College Basketball. We have transfer waivers. We have NIL. Players should do whatever they want, move whenever they want. I don't care. But I do like the stories that are more traditional college basketball stories, and Donovan Dent's got one of those. Goes to New Mexico, averages 5 points a game as a freshman. I'm sure he didn't love his role, but, he came back for his sophomore year. Third leading scorer last year. Watches, JT Toppin go off to Texas Tech and comes back. And now he's a leading scorer on a very good team, going to the NCAA Tournament, Mountain West Conference Player of the Year. Just awesome stuff from him. You work CBS Sports Network, you're going to watch a lot of New Mexico games late at night on a Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever. He's been terrific all season. Fun team. But I do have Boise State shorts. What do you mean say? Top 3 shorts. I think my top 3 shorts are Mets shorts, Boise State shorts, and North Carolina Central shorts. I'm rocking North Carolina Central shorts right now.
There we go.
I'm taking Boise State. Boise State wins today, punches a ticket. Big picture, probably good for the Mountain West.
Yes, for sure. Okay, I got the N1. Before, just real quick, today's slate is insane. I think that today has the potential to be the best day of the entire season. Tournament's great, but the amount of teams playing today and the quality of the matchups, the schedule is insane. Starting with VCU in the A10 tournament at 11:30, going all the way to the late tip, Utah State, Colorado State. That's an approximately midnight Eastern tip on CBS Sports Network. You going to be in studio that late, GP, or no?
No, I got a day shift. I'm like, if you're wondering why we're on a clock, I've got call time in about 14 minutes.
Okay, we're almost done. We're almost done. Hey, listen, for the pod, they'll understand. Well, but we're gonna hustle here. The biggest window though is your dinner time, post dinner time window. Illinois, Maryland, Marquette, St. John's, Carolina, Duke, Missouri, Florida, BYU, Houston, which we're gonna get to amongst plenty of others. GP, I'm just geeked about this day. This is absolutely loaded. In fact, I can't remember a Friday. Like, Friday's always fun. This feels like the most stacked Friday I can remember in conference tournament season. BYU Houston is the N1 game. It is Houston -7 as we speak here. I'll be quick on this. Houston, I know you got some stuff on BYU. I will take the Cougars inside that number. Houston's been awesome, but I will ride the momentum here, and I like BYU to keep this a close game, if not win outright.
BYU, I mentioned earlier, I had some stuff on them. They've won 9 straight, started 6-6 in the Big 12, now 14-6. Since February 11th, BYU is 9-0, number 1 in adjusted offense, 54 in adjusted defense. The top 5 at barttorvik.com since February 11th are these teams in this order. Number 1, Duke. Number 2, BYU.
Ooh.
Number 3, Houston.
Ooh.
Number 4, Auburn.
Mm.
And number 5, Florida.
Cougs. Them. More of them.
This could be a moment. This could be a moment. This could be a moment in the podcast. Are we both going to identify as thems?
Well, I'm taking the Cougs to cover.
I've spent the overwhelming majority of my life being a us. I don't even know what it's like to think about being a them. It never even occurred to me to try it. For as long as I can remember, I was trying to be a us. I won't say I was successful initially, but I got there. All I ever wanted to be was a us. That's all I ever wanted to be. Could I try to be a them today?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Give me BYU. I'm going to be a them today. How do you even do it? How do you do it? What should I do the rest of the day?
I don't think you can drink hot liquids. I think that's part of it. Something like that. BYU.
Okay, so ice lattes, no problem.
Okay, there you go. BYU fans, you got some good stuff. We have to get out of here, but I have to mention 2 things before we go. Number 1, John Paquette is retiring from the Big East. He is the comms director, has been there for 35 years. He's
legend.
Incredible. I'm so sad to see him go. Every single coach is giving him love. The first thing that these coaches are saying at the post-game press conference is addressing Paquette, who's on the dais there, and he's getting his flowers. It's incredible. A real quick story. Before I got to CBS in 2009, I ran College Hoops Journal, which was an independent website, and I was on the grind. I was a sports editor of 2 different weekly newspapers in Connecticut. I was doing, I think at this time, actually, I don't even know if I was part-time at Yahoo yet. I applied for a Big East credential. I got rejected because this was just about the last phase of like independent websites and blogs not getting credential for this kind of stuff. And thankfully, we were quickly out of that era, literally within a year or 2. But I got denied. However, one of my great all-time friends who lives in New York City, who I went to college with, she said, "You know what? You can come down. You can stay with me." Because I said, I'm going to go anyway. I'm going to go to the Garden. I'm going to show up and still try and get a credential. So I go to the Garden. I take the train in at like 7:30. I just want to get in the building because I had experienced this a couple times before. Long story short, happened to know someone who knew someone who was the head doctor of MSG. So in like 05, 06, like I actually went and got like this special tiny credential that I still have that allowed me. I didn't have a seat, but I went backstage. And I remember asking Jim Boeheim a question at the press conference after like the 2006 Big East tournament and all this kind of stuff. So I'd been there and I wanted to experience it properly with the credential. I get to the Garden and it's John Paquette, who is all of 5'1", 5'2". And if you don't know him, his natural, he can have like a little bit of a serious face. I don't want to say a scowl, but if you don't know. So I get there, I say, "Hey, my name is Matt Norlander. I run College Hoops Journal. I applied for credential. I'm not sure if it went through or not. But yeah, if it's possible, I would love to just have the opportunity to cover the Big East tournament today." And he looks at me, he goes, "Norlander, yeah, I remember you. You were a no." And I was like, "Okay, there's not any possibility." He's like, "Sorry, we can't help you." So tail between my legs, I turn around and I leave. That was the day that Syracuse and UConn played 6 overtimes. That was the day. And I wound up watching that game next door to the Garden with one of my buddies who went to Syracuse, which was another fun all-time memory. But the point is this. My first impression of John Paquette was like, here's a guy who's 5'1", and I am terrified of this dude. He told me no. He is, and all these years later, he is phenomenal. He is incredible. He is widely respected. I am so bummed that he is leaving. I know we're up against the clock, GP. I had to give him his flowers. And my first impression, sometimes I say first impressions make a lasting one, not with Paquette. I've told him this story a couple of times. He deserves every bit of love. There is something about hearing his voice. UConn's on its way after the press conference, giving the stats before everything. Man, he's awesome. He's earned retirement, but I'm sad to have him leaving. One more thing, then it's you, and you can close it up. We lost John Feinstein unexpectedly on Thursday. He is one of the most influential and important sports journalists this country has ever had. He had a deep, deep, deep devotion to college basketball on a level that I very much identify with because of how much he loved the mid-major game. He has been the author of some of the most important sports books, period, ever. He unexpectedly died. Hoops Weiss is here in New York, one of his close friends. I got to talk with Hoops a little bit. Brendan Quinn wrote a story that I haven't yet read, but I know is going to be phenomenal because BQ is phenomenal. And this has really made major and understandably like huge ripple effects around the sports world and college basketball. The fact that like this is his time, and losing Feinstein period at this time is any time is depressing. But like 3 days before Selection Sunday, apparently it might have been a heart issue, happened unexpectedly on Thursday. He was supposed to speak at a Coaches versus Cancer thing in Philly on Monday with Dana O'Neill, our friend who is here. So very sad, somber day. I can't believe Feinstein's gone. He was a huge bulldog champion for media on a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't realize. He stood on what he believed in. He wrote a seminal book on Bob Knight. If you know anything about college basketball and you're over the age of 30, you know who John Feinstein was. So I know we're up against the clock here, GP, but I could not get out of this show today because next one's going to be Selection Sunday. You know, John Feinstein, legend, going to be dearly missed. And it truly breaks my heart. And a lot of people are rattled by this. Coaches, everyone. I talked with Ian O'Connor last night, who said he got into book writing because of John Feinstein. Ian O'Connor's an incredible author. And Paquette retiring. So, you know, I know that's a little bit of a long speech from me, but I had to give people their flowers. And yeah, we got all these great games, but there's a lot of twisted and torn emotions with a lot of stuff here.
When I saw the Feinstein stuff pop across the timeline, yeah, I was like, what? And like, it was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even know how to.
Dana O'Neill came up to me and Borzella and was like, hey, listen, like Hoops just told me, like, I think Feinstein died. And I'm like, what? Like getting it in person from someone when it hadn't yet been official. It was between games and it was definitely rattling.
Yeah. I had this memory yesterday. You know, you get hired at CBS Sports from a newspaper. You feel like that. You feel like you accomplished something, right? And I got hired in July 2006. Literally, my first assignment was to go to Sonny Vaccaro's ABCD camp in Teaneck, New Jersey. I got hired in July 1st, and I took off to Sonny's camp. And, you know, flew in, got the rental car, whole thing, park it at the gym. And coincidentally, 2 spots over, parking at the exact same time, John Feinstein. I don't normally do this because I just don't normally introduce myself to people. But I felt, why not? Mr. Feinstein? Gary Parrish, CBS boy. He couldn't have been nicer. We go inside, and I have this memory. My first ever day actually working for CBS Sports, I sat next to John Feinstein and watched grassroots basketball games at Sonny's ABCD camp, right? I have that. And then subsequently, I would do radio with him sometimes. He would do radio with me sometimes. I don't ever want to suggest like we were best friends, but I did spend time with them, and just an incredible, incredible talent. As for John Paquette, at the Commercial Appeal, realignment's happening. This is like 2003. This is more than 2 decades ago. I go to the Big East spring meetings. Guys running the whole thing, John. And it's like, and so you are Gary Parrish. From where? Yeah. Commercial Appeal newspaper, Memphis. So what are you here for? I have been trying to get Memphis into a different conference for 2 decades. Yeah. And it started in Florida at the Big East meetings, and John was there, and he's been tremendous. Like, I'm sort of trying to picture him talking to you outside the garden that day. And I could see it being something like this. Yeah, we can't help you. You're gonna need to get on your way.
Yeah, you're not on
you're gonna need you're gonna need to get on your way, fella.
Yeah. It was, and you know what?
I knew that was like a legend, a real legend.
I had to try, and he's incredible. And there's a lot of great people that do stuff like him, but he is on the short list of all-time greats. And everything you see here, read about John Paquette, it's all accurate. And yeah. So anyway, I know we're running late. You got your call time at Network, but thanks for indulging. And folks, read up on both those guys. One of them who is unfortunately no longer with us.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Terry Teagle, legend. Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching, listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. More of us than there are of them. We'll talk to you again real soon. I guess we'll have a bracket next time we talk to you.
Selection Sunday, late Sunday. Get ready, live show. We'll have you covered. As always, I can't wait for it, Parrish.
Can't wait. See you later. Till then, take care.